Hey, what's up, Liron here. Today we're going to learn how to paint a relatively easy sunset scene in watercolor. It's quite easy and simple, but it's also nuanced, which I think is very interesting. I taped the paper down this time because it had a bit of a buckle in it because it came from a roll. Now I'm measuring a bit just to get the proportions. I'm going to put the horizon line, basically just a bunch of lines showing where the mountain ridges are. The beautiful thing about this scene is the drawing is really super simple. Just lower third, drop a couple of horizontal lines, then we're gonna mark where the sun's gonna go. You can try and make it interesting, try and make it not fully symmetrical. That's why I went asymmetrical there with the mountain ridge on the right, a bit of a smaller mountain on the left. Put the sun down close to the horizon because it is a sunset. This is, by the way, a beautiful scene. I wish we could just come out the car. I took this picture. We could come out the car and I would just paint it plein air, but it was late. I had nothing to paint with. So it's just a beautiful scene. Now I'm doing something a little strange here. I put a piece of tape on the paper and marked where the sun is. I'm going to just strengthen the mark off paper, and then we're going to use just a normal X-Acto knife to cut out that piece and place it over there, essentially masking tape, like masking fluid. So I do it very carefully. I put the tape on paper, but very gently because you don't want to tear the surface, and then I mark the spot. Then I take it off paper, and then I can sketch a little stronger, tape it there, and we can freely paint the background. Now look at the water, just a lot of water because everything is smooth transitioned here. So you don't want to paint wet on dry. I love painting wet on dry. I usually paint wet on dry, but this time there's no way around it. You really have to work wet on wet here. So I pre-wet everything, and I'm starting slow and gentle. Okay, one thing to understand is this is the wash that makes or breaks the painting. So this is where we're going to put most of time in. Once we're done with this wash, 90% of the painting is done. So you can take your time. When I look at the scene, there is a hint of warmth in the sky, a hint of neutrality and coolness in the horizon. And the sky goes from light to dark, and I really want to capture how it goes from light to dark, but also from yellow and warm to gray. The more you move down the scene, closer to where the sun is, it's graying out. So I'm just using my lunar black here. It's a beautiful black color. It granulates, which is fine. It's not going to really be of use here. But what's important, what you want to pay attention to, is there's one main detail in this painting, which is the sun. And this is where the interest in the nuance comes from. So the sun is the lightest bit of the scene, and it's the most colorful one. The yellow there, it's not strong, but it is the strongest color in the scene. You want to contrast it with something dark so that it shows. That's the thing. And this is why I'm taking my time here mixing this warm gray, because it's very important that the sun actually contrasts. If this wash ends up drying too light, which is pretty much my main overall mistake in watercolor, is that I tend to go too light, especially in wet and very flowy washes. You go too light, the sun won't contrast with it. And guess what? Once this dries, it's going to be much harder to get that same flow, get that same smooth transition. So we have to really take our time here and darken this area. Now, you can't always just jump straight to the darkest value. It takes a bit of easing into because of how watercolor works. You want your paint to be thicker than what's on paper to make a mark, but if it's too thick, it's not going to move enough. So essentially, we're going with the flow. It's like a roller coaster. You start with very wet, and then as the painting progresses, you go a little stronger and stronger. Now, if you're really a beginner, an issue you may run into is you go too late and then the paint is already dried. You'll get this weird texture. It won't look smooth. If that's the result you got, look at this bit here. I'm really putting down with a very light touch, by the way, on the brush. These marks are going to really create an interesting sky for us, and it still works wet and wet because the timing is right. But again, if you're really just a beginner, you may do this too late. So it's one thing you want to pay attention to, not to go too late and end up with something that doesn't show enough. Not doesn't show enough, it doesn't blend enough, so you'll get a mess. Okay. Now, one more caveat. You got to go dark. You see, you use some courage, go dark. One caveat is I would say you can fix things after this dries it's just going to be a lot harder. So why not with one of these paintings where there's barely any drawing, there's barely any details, to just go for it in this wash. Okay, now I'm starting to make preparations for the horizon line. So you'll notice that there is a mountain ridge that is quite light and pale and looks a little cooler. And then we have the rest of the land, basically. And after about 20 minutes after I took this pic, there was an even better composition with like interesting rocks. It's a crazy good scene. I really want to just drive there and paint it, but it's so far away from here. It's just wonderful. Now I'm just wetting a bit, spraying some water on the palette to reawaken the paints, cause you're gonna need strong paint for this bit. Okay, you're gonna need strong colors here. We need them to really show. So I'm starting with ultramarine and I'm adding a bit of burnt sienna. These are mostly Daniel Smith. I want to start figuring out where the horizon line is and place it in a way that it will last. I don't want it to blend too much, so I'm going strong here, okay? And because the paint on paper has begun to dry a bit, and sorry I didn't tilt the paper, I should have at this point, because it's begun drying, you can get away with thicker and thicker paint. You see it, how it is still, it's not fully like a sharp edge, it's still blending a bit and smoothing out into the background, which is what we want. Okay, so it's all about timing. Watercolor is all about timing. I can honestly talk about it all day long, but unless you experience it for yourself, it'll be very, very difficult to just know based on what I'm doing here. And this is something I'll talk to you about a lot in the near future, and also in the book, by the way, that I'm writing, a new how-to watercolor book. If something's not in your lived experience, it's going to be very hard to use it as a tool, as a technique, as a process. So a big aspect of improving your watercolor paintings is experiencing things, just the experience of painting and really being there on your own, not just based on tutorials and on other people's guidance, is huge. It's a huge aspect in improving. And if you do want to take your watercolors to the next level, I would really appreciate if you check out the frustration-free watercolor course if you still haven't. I'm going to put a link in the description box below. Just will show you how to break free, paint loose, beautiful watercolors, get the results you want. I'm also going to link down the Watercolor Realism course. And if you've already watched these, I'm also going to link the watercolors critique, so you can get a personalized critique of your own paintings. Send me up to 3 paintings. I'll make a video for you, a private video, not something to share here on YouTube, where I basically guide you in what I think works, what doesn't work, what you can improve. Okay, so that's if you're a bit more advanced and you really need that personalized razor sharp feedback and just save a bunch of years of trial and error. So I'm going to put links to all of that down below. Thank you so much for checking it out. I haven't talked about a drawing course in a while, but if you're struggling with drawing, it's going to be there too. But in any case, so we're keeping on adding more and more and more details. This is the money time, because this is the perfect the last perfect moment where we can actually add stuff. Okay, now you'll notice the ground goes a little lighter close to the bottom, and that's something I did manage to preserve. I'm looking at the painting to my side here, the finished painting. And that's something I managed to preserve, but still all the ground is darker than the sky. So it's something you also want to pay attention to. These are the big shapes essentially in this painting. It's the sky and the ground. And there are many, 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 many ways of making the separation between the sky and the ground. You can go with a sharper edge. You can go with even a softer than this kind of an edge. There's a lot of play that can be done in the temperatures and the color selection. So this scene that is seemingly simple, that's a lot of S's, as a scene that's seemingly simple, there are a lot of ways of approaching it that are more nuanced, and you can really iterate on what we're doing here. Okay, just something to have in mind, and I will probably make a bigger version of it. I have a good vision for it in my mind, so hopefully I'll get to do that. Now we're removing the tape, so check it out. Now we have a sun. Now the sun is yellow, and you'll notice in the reference photo. What I'm doing first is you'll notice the lower edge of the sun disappears into the horizon. That's actually very common, where it just goes into a smooth transition. So I'm using a brush very gently. It's a damp brush, and I'm just scrubbing that edge. Shut up, truck. And I'm scrubbing that edge and then lifting with my paper towel. So just to loosen up that edge. Okay, there are other ways of doing it. This is the easiest, most straightforward one for me, but you have to be careful. You don't want to start getting weird cauliflowers, so you just do it very carefully. Now I'm mixing a bit of yellow on my palette. It's a warm yellow, so anything New Gamboge, Indian yellow will work. You can even use lemon yellow and add a bit of red to it. That's perfectly fine. The colors really don't matter if you're getting the gist of what I'm saying. It's more about how the temperatures and values relate to one another. Now, as it moves down, it goes a little more red, believe it or not, but it's very nuanced, so I'm being careful here. You can always just glaze another layer, but if you go too strong here, it's going to be ugly and messy to fix, so you don't want to go there necessarily. I'm going to add a bit of red there, just a bit of it, just to make it a little more red, and you'll see it goes yellow to red and to a smooth edge. And something else that's really beautiful about it is that the top edge is sharper, and then the lower edge is smoother. Now, by the way, I could have pushed the contrast to be even darker behind the sun. So that's what I mean when I say you can iterate on this many different ways of painting the same elements together. And I'll probably do this kind of an experiment, just darkening the background even more, making the sun pop more. Contrast isn't a must. It really depends on what you want to convey. I was actually very interested in conveying something more nuanced here, something more subtle, and I think this painting captures it. To me, it really captures the feeling of being there, and I really just enjoyed this scene. It's a beautiful scene, and I'd love to go back there and paint it, or get some more pictures of it and try and iterate on that, because this was a picture taken through the car window, if I'm not mistaken. So I didn't take the picture. Don't worry, I was driving. But yeah, you can improve this kind of a thing. Now, removing the tape. It's been a while since I've shown you the tape removal process. We had a bit of a leak down there on the bottom right area, but that is fine. Here you go. This is the final result. I'm really pleased with this one. I will show you a scan as well. Just very calm, relaxing, nuanced desert sunset scene, which I'll definitely do another version of, and I'll keep you posted. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I do want to take this moment to thank everyone who supports me over on Patreon. I just dropped a new poster, I think 2 days ago or 1 day ago, I don't remember. So you want to check that out. I give you some pointers as to how to tackle the first wash of your watercolors, and how I kind of view the first wash. So thank you so much to anyone who supports me there. If you want to receive access to some exclusive content and credits at the end of the videos, super grateful if you check it out. I do plan on releasing more and more content there. So I'm very grateful for that. And lastly, I will remind you of the courses. I'm going to link down everything below. Frustration-free watercolor course, watercolor realism course, draw anything course, how to shade course, sketching people masterclass, all my courses. It's basically a link down below, plus the watercolor critiques. If you feel like you need personalized feedback, especially if you watched the 2 watercolor courses, maybe that's the right thing for you, because it's just gonna, it's gonna save you years of fumbling through it, and at least you can learn from my experience, and I still have a lot to learn, but at least I can help you leapfrog and make faster progress towards your destination. At some point, maybe you'll be even more skilled and experienced than me, So yes, thank you so much. We'll see you in the next vid. Take care.